Well, the presidency believes the Buhari administration deserves some credit for what it describes as diminishing corruption in the public service, describing the report, which we just played, as an inaccurate portrayal of the facts on the ground. There was a statement put up by Mr. Govt, spokesman to the president. He says they will continue to support prevention, enforcement, public education, and enlightenment activities of anti-corruption agencies. Now, part of that statement also reads, we are currently analyzing the sources of data used in arriving at the latest Transparency International's report on Corruption Perceptions Index in Nigeria, since by their own admission, they don't gather their own data. Mr. Auwal Rafsanjani, as you've seen that, joins us this morning. He's the head Transparency International office in Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for joining us again today. Well, statement from Mr. Shea was saying, all right, well, when he says, well, TI don't collect their own data, third-party information, and already saying, look, there's a level of credibility. I mean, there'll be huge questions about this is just perception, but not necessarily reality. That seems to be the message they're communicating from the presidency. How do you react to that?
Well, first and foremost, I think, some people have no conscience, and some people did not mean well for the government they are even serving. It is not surprising to be hearing some of this dismissal and some of this statement. I think any right-thinking person that, really genuinely, believes in this country and want to help the country to move forward, from this systematic corruption we face ourselves, will be able to tell the truth and also advise government and then do the right thing. Now, you don't need Transparency International to tell you that Nigerians are facing terrible corruption in their daily life. If you want to get admission today, you have to pay a bribe. If you want to get a job in government, they are selling job offers, you have to pay a bribe. If you want a promotion, you have to pay a bribe. If you want your entitlement as a worker, you have to pay a bribe. Everything in this country is about bribe. So Nigerians are facing this terrible thing. And even government institution itself, they conducted together with the UNODC, that is the Bureau of National Statistics, they conducted survey to show the prevalence of corruption, which they say in their report, police come as top of the most corrupt, institution in Nigeria. ICPC conducted, and they show that there's a prevalence of corruption. Even EFCC every day is arresting people, because of the corruption. So, recently, government also suspended the Ibrahim Magu, the former EFCC former EFCC Ibrahim Magu, for allegation of not accounting for the recovered asset. So this is something that every day, you look at National Assembly, even on this palliative, some people, they came to even testify how they share Nigerian money. So if you have conscience and you are really serious about helping Buhari administration to succeed, in the fight against corruption, you should stop making caricature of yourself. You should actually, like what we have seen in other countries, the countries that have been ranked or that they have deficiency in terms of fighting corruption, they sit down and come up with strategy on how to combat this corruption. And look at the sources that actually conducted, or that gathered this information. Shamelessly, Nigeria is even members of this institution. For example, you have World Bank Country Policy and Institutional Assessment, which Nigeria is a member of it. You have World Economic Forum Executive Opinion Survey. Nigeria is a member of this. You have World Justice Project Rule of Law. Nigeria is, part of this. You have Varieties of Democracy Project. You have Global Insight Country Risk Guide, and several other sources that, this rating was conducted. So these are credible, globally accepted and respected, institution. It's not one, group that is not known. It is groups that Nigerian government itself is part and parcel of. And look at the corruption that is going on even in the procurement. Recently, the Abacha loot that we all fought to make sure that the Abacha loot money come back to Nigeria. When they are appointing the consultant for the project, they again plot the public procurement law and that is now being in court, disgracing even the country. No country is going to return money when they see corruption in the process. So I think people, in government who are the spokesperson of government, if they really want government to succeed, they need to be honest, sincere, and agree that, yes, we actually have challenges and that we need to deal with these challenges in a manner that we can combat corruption. But to come and dismiss it or to come and blackmail or abuse us to say that characters behind the transparency, who are the characters? I am the head of Transparency International. I am not a politician and I am not associated with any politician in this country. And if there is anyone, let him come or let her come and say that, CISLA, Transparency in Nigeria, is linked to them.
Mr. Auwal, let me read the statement for you. Mr. Shehu did put up a statement. He says, we have repeatedly challenged Transparency International to provide indices and statistics of its own to justify its sensational and baseless rating on Nigeria and the fight against corruption. We expect them to come clean and desist from further rehashing old tales.
Like I said, some of them, they don't even know what they are saying. They are contradicting themselves. These institutions that they are doing this survey for Nigeria itself is a member of those institutions. Nigerian own agency, National Bureau of Statistics, conducted survey to show the prevalence of corruption in Nigeria. ICPC have done that. So you don't need Transparency International to tell you that there's a corruption in Nigeria. This is what everybody is going. Me and you and other ordinary citizens in the country, they are facing that. And even the government on its own admission, is sending away people from, for example, they suspended Magu because they say that Magu has not accounted for the, asset they have recovered. And now, let me tell you, the domestic assets that have been recovered, where are the goals? Where are the juries? Where are the estates? Where are the expensive cars? All these things have disappeared, no accountability. So instead of dismissing the fact that there's a corruption in Nigeria and asking TI to give you, more evidence, you are just wasting Nigerian time because you know that you are not honest, you are not sincere. So some of these people in government, if Buhari is actually aware of what they are even doing, he will have fired them because they are actually undermining the President Muhammad Buhari from his agenda in the fight against corruption. If only they are coming to say that there's no corruption.
Well, Mr. Rafsanjani, you also said in the statement you put out that there were the statement wasn't about any specific evidences of corruption, but that of perception. Perhaps that is why the presidency is saying, what are the sources of your own data that are domestic and not just, global and all of that. So when you talk about perception of, as opposed to the evidences of corruption itself, perhaps that's the angle from which the presidency is speaking. How do you react to that?
But like I mentioned to you, these are the sources. These are the sources for the Corruption Perception Index for Nigeria, which, interestingly, Nigeria is members of most of these sources. Unless Nigeria is saying that, the World Bank capacity policy and institutional assessment is a liar. Unless Nigerian, Gorbachev, they are saying that, World Economic Forum executive opinion, survey is a liar. Unless they are telling us that World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, what they are coming up is a lie. Unless they are telling us the Variety of Democracy Project, what they are saying is a lie. Look, these are global, reputable, respected, well-acknowledged institutions that are doing this, Okay. And Transparency International, is not concocting anything. And like I said, Nigerian, government on institution also conducted, survey to show the prevalence of corruption. So if TI is even talking about perception, Nigerians are saying that, look, it's not perception, it's actually real corruption we are facing because the extortion, and the corruption that we are seeing on daily basis is overwhelming. And instead for this spokesperson to advise the president and suggest policy and program that can help reduce corruption, they are busy dismissing it. I think if Buhari is aware, he will appear some of these people because they are undermining him, they are undermining the government, they are also betraying Nigerian people. Buhari administration promised to fight corruption, and these people are coming to actually, because some of them, they're actually beneficiary of corruption. That is the only justification for why they are hiding this. Otherwise, Nigerians are facing terrible corruption in their life. You cannot get admission in the university. You have to pay bribe.
Now, all these issues that you have raised, quite significant, one might say. But then, to a large extent, many times when we talk about corruption, we look to the government. But then, from some of the issues, some of the examples you have also cited of people going through systemic and pervasive corruption at different points in their lives, what then can be done? You have talked about, legal frameworks to do all of these. Usually our attention is on fighting corruption as opposed to preventing corruption. Which should we prioritize?
Well, actually, if you really want to have a successful fight against corruption agenda, definitely you need to have the necessary enabling legal framework to be able to do that. There are absence of some legal framework that are making the fight against corruption in Nigeria impossible. And in some instances, you have some legal framework, but they are not being complied with. They are not being respected. For example, we have deficiency in having a legal framework, in the area of whistleblowing. You cannot fight corruption successfully without whistleblowing protection regime. Secondly, you are focusing on access recovery, and then you don't have legal framework on how to manage the recovered asset. That is why the assets are recovered and Nigerians didn't see anything. The assets are recovered and get looted again. Domestic assets that have been recovered in this country are so huge, but nobody is going to give you, information or data on where these, assets are. Again, you have, laws that are supposed to help to fight corruption. They are not being operationalized. For example, you have freedom of information. Many government institutions, they don't respect it. You have, for example, Public Procurement Act 2007 is not being respected. Currently now, there's a dispute because of the corruption in the procurement process that is giving the country a bad name. Where consultants were supposed to be selected, and they refuse to follow the public procurement provision. This is not good for the country. Look at the racketeering in the passport office. You want to get passport or renew passport, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. You see the extortion and the corruption going on there, racketeering everywhere. And some people are now sitting in their comfort offices saying that there's no problem with corruption in Nigeria. Nigerians are facing this terrible corruption.
Part of the government's thinking from the statement Mr. Gabasho released is that the examination that TI carried out in their 2019 report showed that 60% of their data was collected from businesses and other entities with issues bordering on transparency and ease of doing business at the ports. And he says, look, the country's economy is bigger than the seaports that we have. Just suggesting that, look, this is just a minuscule, very small part that you covered and made it 60% of your report.
See, an honest and sincere, committed, patriotic person who speaks for government should have said, okay, if there are challenges in this area, how do we do to combat this problem? Not to come and dismiss it, because Nigeria, whether you dismiss it or not, Nigerians are facing it. Look at the insecurity. What is spoiling the insecurity is corruption, So look, I think there's need to have sanity. And I just hope and pray that the president will wake up to be able to deal decisively with the people who he have entrusted, in his government that are betraying him. The fight against corruption is not working very well. These are facts. And, we need to do everything possible as a responsible patriotic citizen to support our government to block those leakages. Every day, you wake up, from TV to radio to newspaper to community, you hear corruption, you hear corruption, you hear corruption. And some people in government are coming to dismiss that. Look, internationally, our image has been terribly damaged because they have transformed this corruption to even our embassies, to even our foreign services. Look, we need to be more honest and more serious. National Assembly every day is holding, every now and then is holding public hearing, people coming to testify how corrupt the system is, how they are undermining corruption. And then again, fight against corruption cannot stop in Abuja. You have 36 states in the federation. You have over 777 local governments. They don't even know that the fight against corruption exists because of the absence of, operationalizing national strategy on the fight against corruption, we need to encourage states to adopt, and replicate EFCC and ICPC in their state, because corruption in local government and the state is very intense and is happening. Nobody is exposing those things because of fear, of some powerful people at that tier too. So look, when you really want to do this, you have to, know that you are actually putting Nigerians at more risk, when you come to dismiss that there's no corruption and that it is perception. Nigerians are saying it's not even perception, it is reality, because they are facing this extortion and corruption on a daily basis.
Well, I'm glad you even mentioned in that report, whistleblower policy, ensuring protection for those who give vital information regarding the fight against corruption. Now, this report is peculiar, as you will agree, in terms of its methodology. I mean, it's even called the Corruption Perceptions Index. But just before we get into some specifics about the methodology, how the data was gathered, who was spoken to, who was not spoken to, during the course of this conversation, you have used statements like, if Buhari is aware, if the president is aware. In fact, just moments ago, you said, if the president will wake up. I just want you to clear the air. Specifically, when you use that term, when you say that, what are you trying to pass across, really, especially regarding the president?
The message I'm trying to pass across is that if the president knows that some of the people he has appointed, they are not actually helping him to fight corruption like he wanted or like he promised to do in Nigeria, he would have nothing to do with those people, because they are actually helping to undermine, his, agenda in the fight against corruption. So if the president, really is aware, I don't see how president will keep such kind of people, because he had made several commitments that he is there to fight corruption, and he alone, he cannot do. He has to do with right team. And from what I'm seeing, many people who will come to say there's no corruption in Nigeria, or that they will dismiss what Nigerians are passing through, as a result of the consequences of corruption, the president, I believe, he would have sent them away, because they are not helping him. What we have seen in other countries, possible, like really? Europe, America, Asia, and other African countries, what they do, their countries, when we send out this report, what they do, they say, okay, where are the areas that we have deficiency? Where are the areas that we can improve? They sit down and work with non-state actors to block those leakages. But in the case of Nigeria, some people who claim to be speaking for government, they will come and dismiss, no, there's no corruption. Because obviously, if they mean well for the government, they will not come in with this approach. They will come
Mr.
with solution-solving approach.
How is it possible, how is it possible that a president will not be aware of the goings-on in his administration? Really, that bits the mind. How is that even possible?
Well, I mean, you are even in the best position to note so many lacunas, so many problems that is obviously giving us the impression that the president is not aware. Because if he is very much aware, we believe that decisive action will have been taken. So if you have a trusted team to work with you, you don't need to be everywhere. It is that trusted, committed, honest, sincere, patriotic team that you have in your government in various places. Those are the ones that will represent you and do the right thing and carry out your dream, your policy, your commitment, your promises that you made to the nation. But if those team members, they don't even believe in what you are doing, you would have seen that there's a problem. You will have seen that the president will not get the necessary information that is required, because he is one person, he cannot be everywhere. He has to have trusted, committed, qualified, competent team that will help him to be able to deal with issues, the problems, and the issues he has actually campaigned for and promised Nigerians to deal with. But when you don't have those right persons that can actually help, implement the agenda of the president, right, definitely you a failure.
Okay, Mr. Rafsanjani, let's see if we could just talk about the methodology in specifics now, because looking at the, which was also put out by Transparency International, says that the CPI scores and ranks, it ranks countries really based on how corrupt country's public sector is perceived by experts and business executives. But it also says that you didn't factor citizens' perceptions or experience of corruption, tax fraud, and some other areas. It talks about what you focused on, but not on citizens' perception. Basically, citizens were not spoken to. And also, looking at the document put out by TI, it says that it is not a verdict, that's talking about the CPI, on the levels of corruption of entire nations or societies or of their policies or the activities of their private sector, which tries to clear the air, saying that what we have put out, we're not saying, in fact, it's said specifically that when we say that this country ranks last, doesn't mean it's the most corrupt country. But based on the data that we have gotten from those, parties, that's why we put out this perception. So would you still say that this is a verdict on the government's fight against corruption? Because clearly that's what the government is internalizing this as.
Well, that is why I said, if only the government official cool down to understand what we are trying to communicate, they would have helped themselves, from all this dismissal and reputal and blackmail and name calling. Look, this report is focusing on public sector perception on how people who have come to do also business in the country, all this expert group that I mentioned, the World Bank, Economic, World Forum on juries, and all of the groups that I had highlighted earlier on, if only government understand that these are groups that they give their own perception, their own verdict. There are different methodologies that you can do. Every social science student knows and understands different methodology, different approaches that you can apply, to come to your own results. In this case, what we are saying is that these are groups that they look at democracy operation in Nigeria. These are groups that they look at our justice system in the country. These are groups that they look at how, financial transaction happens in the country. These are groups that they are looking at the totality of the public sector on how corruption is being perceived, in those places. That's what TI is talking about. It's not even assessing the entire government, program on fighting corruption. That is why I say they are jumping the thing. But in addition to this, Nigerians are even saying that, look, what even TI is talking, TI is not actually even, TI is only talking about perception. But what Nigerians are saying, that they are actually facing real corruption. So Garba Shehu and the like of him should go and explain to Nigerians why corruption, that is killing them, that as a result of that, we are the capital of poverty in the world. As a result of that, kidnapping and armed robbery has taken over. You should go and tell them that there's no those kind of problems.
In the days ahead, the technical unit on governance research, so they will come up with their data. So I think we'll all have an opportunity to see further what their thinking is about all of these. And we do thank you most kindly for joining us this morning. Auwal Rafsanjani, Head, Transparency International Office in Nigeria.